Okay, good morning. It's part 2 of Back to School Zoom with our coach sisters. And if you are watching this later as a replay, just know that we met yesterday, and so we're calling that part 1. If you want to go back and watch that one, Jennifer Benavides will have that uploaded soon to the YouTube channel. And we try to put it on the coach page too, but the YouTube channel just gives more space and ease to find things. All right, so yesterday I shared some scriptures with y'all, and I just want to touch on them again because I said one of the things I've learned over the years is the most important thing about back to school time is to keep your time sacred, a little more sacred than you have all summer running around like chickens with your heads cut off, because that's what I do, and say no to as many things as you can. Like, I was really proud of myself. An elder's wife texted me about a week ago, and she said, you know, you've always done XYZ the last several years. I wanted to confirm, since we're starting that program back up after, COVID, and I don't want to assume that you still want to do it. And so I took that opportunity, seeing my son's last year here at home, to say, I'm going to give somebody else an opportunity to serve in that way. So, don't be afraid to say no, because you are actually giving somebody else the blessing of serving in a way that they have not served before. So I'm trying to look at it that way. Instead of feeling guilt for yourself or, beating yourself up, it's healthy to set boundaries and say no, but it's not just a negative against you. It's not a negative at all saying no. It's an opportunity. You're robbing somebody else the joy if you continue to say yes. So look at it that way. All right. So yesterday we did say, okay, let's protect our time. And so I tried to give you an acronym, and I really messed up because I forgot the first verse. So we're going to go over it again really quickly. I said that you need to keep your family first and keep your time protected, KEEP. And the K stands for kindle, as in rekindle a desire to serve the Lord in this capacity as a homeschool teacher. So the verse that I would like to, or the passage I would like to read for that is 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 7. 1 Peter 1, verses 3 through 7. And let me change versions here. All right, I'm reading from ESV this morning. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. All right, so we know that in 1 Peter, he's talking about being persecuted. Oh, let me let these people in. He's talking about being persecuted as Christians, not as homeschool moms in that time. But I still like the analogy of being tested by fire. And I know that all of you can relate to a refining process, because there's nothing more humbling than homeschooling your own children. And so just keep in mind that you sometimes need to rekindle your desire and remember your why. Okay, if you don't know your why, write it down somewhere, because everybody has a different why. I can't tell you what your why is. You can't tell me what my why is. But rekindle that desire. Maybe talk to your husband about it and pray about a new year mission to accomplish that desire. But we will all encounter trials this year. We'll all be tested, whether it's by our kids' attitudes, whether it's by a subject that is harder for them than it was last year. But just know you've got to keep the end in mind, right? And this passage talks about, you're going to be not tempted. You're going to be in trials for a little while, what seems like forever, I know. But nothing is going to be more worth it in the end than knowing that our children have a home in heaven, which is hopefully why you're doing this whole journey in the first place. So K, rekindle. So kindle your desire. E was for eat. In Matthew 5:6, we talked about blessed are those who thirst and hunger for righteousness. And I use the word eat in both ways, physically and spiritually. So if you just have little people that, really aren't involved in outside youth group activities, or they're not involved in, soccer practice yet or anything like that, it's kind of like a given. Yep, you're going to eat together because hello, I've strapped them in the chair. But as they do get older and meet friends and have commitments, it's a little more of a juggling game, right? So eating together a couple times a week, I'm sure you've seen the science. The research says they have a much higher percentage of being successful academically. They have a more successful rate of not being involved in promiscuous behaviors. They have a lower risk of being unhealthy, because you are giving them the nourishment they need, hopefully, in a balanced way. So just Google some articles. And I read plenty and I was going to quote some, but it's just too overwhelming. I think all the evidence points to it's healthy and for the mind and body to eat together several times a week. We try to eat together every night. If Samuel has soccer, we kind of eat without him and he eats when he gets home, but I always make a point to come in here and kind of talk to him while he reheats the leftovers, So eating together is that sacred time. And then eating spiritually together every day. It is really easy to try to tackle the hardest subjects first, like math. Am I speaking your language? And then slide the Bible away. And I've been so guilty of that, different seasons for sure. And especially as mine have gotten older and they can do Bible on their own, it looks different. And, I miss that time. Not that we don't talk about the Bible together, but they're much more independent. So anyway, eating spiritually and physically will protect your family time. And the next E for keep your family first is energy. And you're going to try to put some more energy. I just read an article recently about a view on a college student. And it was basically saying, okay, when you go to college, it's your job. And I shared it this morning on Facebook. I think a lot of college kids just walk in thinking that they're going to have tons of free time and it's all about social clubs, and that's fine. That's fun. But they do that is their job. Just like your kids, it's their job to be a student while they're enrolled in your homeschool. As a college student, it's your job to study. Well, if you are putting more energy now that school is starting into your homeschool, it's your job to be a homeschool teacher, right? And I'm preaching to myself too. I've had seasons where I didn't really act like a homeschool teacher. I acted like a whiny mom who really didn't like her job. And it's the one that I prayed for and asked for. So we all have seasons of stamina and zeal that differ, but now's the time to get back in the groove of renewing that energy. And the verses we read for renewing our energy were Psalm 119, 9 through 16. I'm not going to take the time to reread that. And then the last letter for keep your family first at this time of year is pray. And we read about counting the cost before the man built the tower, and just knowing that you're embarking on a new year and you need to pray seriously about it and pray for support, whether it's from your husband, from your sisterhood, from your congregational homeschoolers that homeschool with you, or all of the above. So P was for pray. All right, so those were some of our scriptures that we read yesterday. And then I also shared Charlene Notgrass's blog post to the Coach Facebook page if you missed that yesterday. That was really good. All right, I went through some resources yesterday for you all, and hopefully those were helpful. And I've got a few more to share today. So the first one that you may or may not have or know of is Teaching from Rest. It's a very popular book by Sarah Mackenzie. And so I would just like to read something from this for you, because often we need to reread what we know is true. It says, several years ago, I was told by a lady that she could never homeschool because she wasn't a salt dough map making kind of mom. I get that. Nothing makes me groan like reading in a set of lesson plans, complex instructions telling me how to mummify a chicken or create a raised relief depiction of Egypt. Truth be told, I'm not all that convinced that homeschooling mothers need to engage in such elaborate activities to make learning worthwhile. She's right. A few years into homeschooling, one thing was abundantly clear to me. A peaceful and happy mother is the real key to successful homeschooling. Choosing excellent materials is important, of course. Establishing a healthy daily routine is enormously helpful. Talked about that yesterday, getting back into a daily routine of menus and chores. Developing an active social life is essential. We can read up on every curriculum on the market, listen to podcasts, devour articles, attend conferences, participate in co-ops or support groups, but none of this will have the same impact on the life of a homeschooling family as a peaceful and happy mother. To become peaceful and happy, you've got to figure out what's true about you, what creates environment in which you can thrive. How can you work with your own innate strengths and weaknesses so that your homeschool will be happy and humming, even if you never construct a sugar cube pyramid or help your kids put together a single diorama? Okay, so I know we're all used to being overloaded digitally with information, especially with the shutdown and the pandemic the last year. We've lived on Zoom, we've lived on Facebook live stream, Vimeo, YouTube, you name it. But when you shut out a lot of that and you ask yourself, what makes me feel at peace in my homeschool? How can I best prepare myself? Address that first, especially this first 30 days. If it is changing the time you start schooling, change the time. If it is teaching 4 days and taking 1 day off for the first month so you can get back in the groove, do that. You just have to figure out what works for your family. But I really like many, many times in this book how she points out you have to be at peace and you can't teach from chaos. And so this book is called Teaching from Rest, A Homeschooler's Guide to Unshakable Peace. And so it is found, the publisher is classicalacademicpress.com, but you can just Amazon it. It's only at this point, it was $12.95 whenever I bought it. If anybody has read this book, would you like to share with some of the others that are on who maybe not know about it? I know we've got some new homeschool moms. Does anybody want to say anything?
I've read it and it's really good. I would definitely recommend it. Nothing right now comes to my mind, probably because I read it before school last year. And as all things school goes, the information, be peaceful in the beginning and ready to be done at the end. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm going to start reading that again today. So definitely recommend it.
It's only 77 pages. It's not teeny tiny print. It's really just something that we need to reread often. So, okay, anybody else?
I'm actually reading it right now. I started about 3 days ago, and this isn't my first time reading it, but it's been a few years. And it's just amazing how, like what Naomi was just saying. I don't remember when I read it before. I just knew that I had read it, and so it's being older and wiser and a more seasoned homeschooler. It's really refreshing and really examining myself as an educator. And where I'm coming from, and am I setting the tone for my homeschool? Because it really does come down to mama as to how the day goes. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Hi, buddy. And that's true. It's there's no blame. You can't blame another teacher or an administrator. I mean, you are the private school here.
Can we blame the principal? Can we get our husband?
So it's a very hard, it's a lesson in humility, and she's very honest and she's very real. And I like the fact that she has multiple children. Of course, I'm not saying people with multiple kids work harder in a different way than single kid moms. They homeschool just as well. I'm just saying it's nice that she has a balanced approach when she's talking about scheduling in case you do have multiples. She breaks it down even what a sample day for her looks like and how much time she allots and how she kind of just loops some of her work for her kids. Her kids are much older now. This book is written in, looks like 2000. So yeah, she's already got a kid out of school, but anyway, it's very good information. Okay, let me see who we've got a chat from here. You're welcome, Rose. I love buzzing households. Okay, yesterday I did talk about this book and I wanted to add one note about this. This is called Truth Be Told, Exposing the Myth of Evolution by Apologetics Press. And just because I didn't know if somebody may not know about this, but on the Apologetics Press website, you can sign up for Advanced Bible Reader. And basically it's where you get a code and a password for your family, and your child can go on the website and your child can take tests, comprehension tests over books, magazines, and even just books of the Bible. So for example, if you read, let me think of a short book, Ruth, the book of Ruth, you and your child read the book of Ruth, and they don't have to read it independently. It counts that you read to them. You get on there, you click on the book of the Bible you want to take a test on, and it gives, depending on the length of the book, it gives you anywhere from 10 to 20 questions. And then it gives you points based on how many you got right. And there are no, we're going to mail you a prize kind of deals, but it's just neat to do because it's just something a little more schoolish that they feel important about, than mom doing it. And so my daughter did this one year. Our congregation is involved in Lads to Leaders leadership program. And so for training for Bible reading, they have a program called, I forget what it's called, year-round Bible reading. I forget the name of it. I think that's what it's called. But anyway, on one of the goals you can set to be gold, silver, or bronze, you can choose to take tests and earn so many points. So she did that. So there is a test on this book, and most books that they publish have tests on them, which is kind of cool. And then if you have ever seen the magazines they produce or your congregation uses them for curriculum, because we do for our middle schoolers, I think maybe our 5th graders. Anyway, they're called Explorer Series, and then the other one's called Discovery, I think. Can anybody confirm that for me? The Discover.
That sounds about right.
Okay. That's the younger one, so it's been a while, so I can't remember. But anyway, they're like 6-page glossy magazines. Okay, and you can just buy them in bound volumes. You can buy them as a subscription, but they come in the mail, and we had those for a while, but then my congregation started using them, and so they have tests on those. So it's really cool because if you've read a little leaflet magazine about the beginning of the church, or you've read a leaflet magazine about moral issues, then you can get on there and take a little quiz. So anyway, it's called Advanced Bible Reader, and it's on the AP website. But if you're in Lads to Leaders, just know that you can actually enroll as an event, a year-round event. And you don't have to like prove your score. I mean, it keeps score on their website for you, but you don't have to turn in anything. You just honor system as always. Okay. All right, what do I got here? Okay. This book is an older book, but it's also kind of like a teaching from rest book. It's a real peaceful reminder. It's called Homeschooling with a Meek and Quiet Spirit by Terry Maxwell. And it's another really short book. It is about 100 pages. And it talks a lot about anger. It talks about being disorganized. It talks about being fearful and worrying. It talks about being depressed. It talks about being grateful. just things that are very normal for a mom to go through, especially when you're a homemaker. And so she talks about our weapons and how to combat those and how to have a meek and quiet spirit as a homeschool mom. So basically, it's not a how-to, it's not a curriculum book. It's just a book to maybe soften your heart and just get some encouragement for the journey, to have a more meek and quiet spirit. So it's an older book. It was written in, let's see, 2001. But I still think it has a lot of good information in it, about how we can truly gain some more peace in our home. Also, if you wanted to use this as remember I talked about yesterday about a book club and how that might motivate you to actually get through a book or to meet some milestones yourself as a reader. In the back of each chapter, it does have application projects. So for example, let me just give you one. On disorganization, okay? It has 5 application projects. And it asks you to, one of them says, consult your husband for organizational issues you can't figure out. One says, make a list of the master lists you think would be useful and to begin develop these. So it just gives you some doing homework. Let's see what the anger homework is. All right, the anger homework. One of those is pray about and list goals for each child. Evaluate your expectations in light of your goals. So, check in your own expectations. Okay, so how to homeschool with homeschooling with a meek and quiet spirit. Okay. Now, this next little tip, I have saved this for years, but it kind of saved me. And I wasn't even homeschooling at this time. This was when my kids were just in preschool. But if you're a mom of multiple ages and you've got preschoolers at home that aren't really formally schooling yet, try to make as many picture lists or to-do lists as you can for them to follow, to kind of teach them to get in the routine of following a schedule. So for example, okay, don't laugh because this is my drawings, from like 15 years ago, okay? So this is still in a page protector. I don't know why I saved this. Okay, so at bedtime, Samuel was supposed to put on his pajamas, okay? He was supposed to take a bath. And then what's next? We're gonna brush our teeth. What's next? We're gonna have story time. What's next? We're gonna pray, and then we're gonna say goodnight. Now, that's really basic for bedtime. And I know this is homeschool schedule, not bedtime, but you can use the same concept for your littles. So if you slide out the paper and you know that every Monday you take big sister to piano and it's right after lunch and you don't want him to drag out toys, make him a visual schedule so that he can know what happens today. This is really pre-reading. This is good for structure. It's good for kids with anxiety issues about what's coming and just being able to predict. Of course, then you got to do the whole flexibility thing and say, oh, guess what? That's canceled. We got to go this way now. Be flexible. But you get the idea. We also had one for morning time. And when I did the morning time one where he had to put the pillow back on your bed, put your pajamas in the drawer, read a book while mommy makes breakfast. I took a photograph of him and I printed those pictures of him doing those jobs and put the pictures beside the schedule. So he actually had a picture of what his bed was supposed to look like. And he had a picture of where his pajamas were supposed to go. And he had a picture of, him reading quietly. I took a picture of him actually on the couch with a book and just put that beside each one, because don't tell me kids can't read, because we all use visual cues. When your kid's in the car and they see the big Western hat, they might say, there's Arby's, okay? They can't really sound all that out yet, but they know that says Arby's. So it's the same concept. As a preschool teacher and kindergarten teacher, I would make my kids visual schedules so that they could read, and then you could change them out of the page protector. So anybody have anything to share or add with littles that something's worked for you that you want to share with somebody else? I may not even have anybody on here with littles. I should know my audience, but I'm just sharing this big stack of stuff on my desk. Okay, That doesn't work for you, share it with somebody else. Okay, but it's just nice to be back into the routine with schedules, even for the little people, okay? Another book that you may know about, and if you need reminders this year, is Cindy Colley's book on homeschooling, 77 Things You Need to Know. The cool thing about this book is at the end, her kids who have already graduated write a chapter on their experiences and what they have to say about homeschooling. So this is a good book for a new homeschooler as a gift, or just for yourself to read or reread if you need spiritual ammo. I'll just say that, because it really hones in on the spiritual training of why homeschooling is important, okay? All right, I want to keep this in mind as we get back to school. This is what is required in Kentucky for college prep high school requirements. Some of you may be 10 years out from this. Some of you may be 5 years out from this. But I want you to also think about building blocks to get there. All right, this will come. I'm telling you now, it will come. Okay, so just know that everybody's in a different state, but in Kentucky, I don't have to turn in grades for elementary school or middle school. I don't have to report to anyone, anything really. It's quite scary for those people who really don't care. But in high school, of course, you have to develop, I still don't have to turn in grades in high school, but I have to develop a transcript, of course, to send to college. So you might want to just go ahead and start looking on HSLDA and know what's required in your state, because back to school time is a good time to be organized with a binder for that kind of stuff. And you may already be required to be, to meet with a supervisor or a portfolio inspector, depending on where you are, but I'm not. So my organization has been non-existent until now. So now I'm trying to plug in grades on a transcript and have that ready, but just knowing, okay, what am I going to offer as my fine arts credit, you know, which is 1 credit of either music, drama, or choir. Start Googling around to see what is offered in your area, because if you don't sign up with a formal class, for example, a co-op, how are you going to meet that fine arts credit? Are you going to buy curriculum and do it at home? Or are you going to do it online? You can count if your kids are in song leading training for lads, and they meet for song leading practice and they song lead at the nursing home. You can count all that, but just have a plan on what are you going to use for your fine arts credit? What are you going to use for your health and PE credit? So just, you might Google that and see what's expected in your state, because as you get back to school, it's a good time to start thinking about keeping some records of that stuff. Any questions so far, or any comments about what works for you guys? Okay. Another thing I wanted to show you as far as Bible, I know I've got a lot of Bible, but yesterday we talked about the Heather Pryor books, and Rachel said, oh, I'm gonna go buy that. All right, we had those. Another source I found at a booth at a lectureship was something by, and this would apply for some older kids, but also you could use this as your family time. It's by Rod and Brenda Rutherford, and it is a survey of the Old Testament and a survey of the New Testament. Okay, Naomi, you are nodding your head. Do you have these, or do you know these people?
I know the people, and we have the Old Testament one. So okay. Yeah.
So
wonderful.
Yeah, they are. Again, this is teen version, so it's designed for a teen just to do on their own. But I like this kind of stuff for me, because the Old Testament is my the judges and the kings, and that's my weakness. I wasn't raised in the church, and so I did not get as much history as probably a lot of people. And it's just hard for me to keep things straight. I'll be straight up honest. So I think it's good just for me, just as a refresher. So what happens is it does have some fill in the blank, but it's just a review of what that chapter or what that book is about. Okay. So for example, yesterday for Devo time with my two, I just went over the Joshua pages because we're studying Joshua right now. And so, well, once I get there, I'll tell you. I'll show you what it looks like. And it does have color, so that's kind of nice. Okay, here we go. So it goes over key parts about Joshua. So the purpose of the book, why it was written. It has scripture references from Exodus and Numbers just to show why we're here now. It talks about divisions of the book. It has verses with blanks that you would have to fill in. It reviews each theme for each chapter. And there are red questions throughout. And the red questions are more like application questions. For example, when it was talking about the sin in the camp of Achan, does God know everything we do? Can we hide sin from God? So those are things you could just discuss at family Bible time. And then at the end, there are always review questions. Of course, the teenager could do this on their own, but you could just drill these with your kids. What is Joshua's name in Greek? How did God approve of Rahab's lie? What does Joshua mean? So anyway, I like these and they're really cheap. I'm like $7 or something like that. I mean, it's just paper. It's nothing fancy at all. But who would I call? What is it? Do you know how I would get these? Rutherford Books. Let's see.
You know, I'm trying to think. My kiddos go to camp with that family, and I want to say that's where we ended up getting copies from.
Okay.
Or just some kind of event we went to.
Right, they had a booth. Put it this way, if you're interested, I have his email. You could email or call. I have a 1-800 number. And it's not just these books. They have books on a variety of things. Family time. I'm thinking they had one on Revelation, just different books. Okay, they're just another vendor that I used. So I like those. Okay. Okay, speaking of Sarah McKenzie, I also have the Read Aloud family. And if you have not started reading aloud as a family, she talks about the benefits of reading aloud, even to older kids. And there's no time like a new school year to make goals to read as a family. She talks about how to prepare your kids for academic success by reading out loud to them, how to find time for reading aloud, even though you're busy. And then she gives suggestions for books for different ages, like novels, rhyming books, books for kids 0 to 3. Basically, she just wants you to feel like after you read this, you'll feel like books are the most delicious thing in the world. And what I liked about it, it kind of opened my eyes up to you have a secret conversation with your family that no one else can have if you spend time reading together. Private jokes, so to speak, just vocabulary, quotes, background information of things that you can bring up later when you see things out or when you see them going through something and you can compare it to. It's not like it's a shared experience that you're having around that book that you can share with them versus them trying to make that connection with a book they've read on their own that you know nothing about because you didn't read the book. So anyway, she's the founder of the Read Aloud Revival, which is a podcast. If you want to listen to her podcast. And so this is just like her first how-to book that made her famous, so to speak, I guess. Okay.
I just want to chime in about that
book. Yes.
That book means so much to me. And my daughters are 10 and 12 years old. And I ordered that book when it came out and read it. And that inspired me to have an individual read aloud time with each child. Good. And it's such a personal time that I get to have one-on-one time with each child. And I tell you, it's been memorable for me. And the moments that we have with certain books that we'll actually have to stop reading for a few seconds because we just fall out laughing together. You know, it's just, it's been such a blessing, I think, to our homeschool, and a wonderful addition that we didn't have before. And like I said, they're older now, and they already can't wait for this school year to start because of what books they know are on the read aloud list.
That is amazing. And see, I think I found that book, not that I couldn't have started everything, but we did read aloud, but I found it later than I would have liked. And so we did not have a built-in one-on-one time. We did it together, but it was a little later in their age than I would have liked. And so just knowing that you could start this younger, it would have been magical. Yeah. And as a teacher, as a previous public school teacher, I would have loved to recommended this book to my parents because it just has a simple way of laying it out in a non-judgy form, in a non-teacher form, to just say, look what you can gain from it, like Rachel was saying. Just makes it really easy to understand. Okay, if you're looking for something for yourself for spiritual development, or an older kid to do on their own, I'm talking a teenager, I love and recommend these books by Finer Grounds Bible Study. And this is from the girls over at Come Fill Your Cup. Basically, it's a group of Christian sisters out west, and I'm talking like Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado group out there. They have a blog, comefillyourcup.com. You may have read it. Lots of good blog articles in there, lots of good Bible marking topics in there, but their series of books, Finer Grounds Bible Study, is published by Kayo Publications. And Kayo is a publishing company in the church that our own coach mom, Erin Wells, she and her husband run. So that's how you can order them. And Corey says, is there something like that for boys? Well, if you take away the pink cover, it's for boys, okay? Yes, I'll post it on Facebook. Because it is written by women for women, but it's not, I don't see any, this is not fluff. This is meat. So it's a textual study. It's not like, how can you use this verse this week when you meet the girls for coffee to influence Christ? I mean, it is like, you know, the imagery Peter uses here is very similar to that of 1 Peter 1:7. What does this fire produce? According to Peter, how should we view suffering, etc. So give him the blue book. It's a study of Hebrews. Give him the blue book. No, they do have, Kayo has some books geared towards boys. One is called To Train Up a Knight. And this book is by Erin Sprouse. Her husband, Jeremy, wrote the book To Train Up a Knight. And then I have a couple more on Samuel's shelf that I could look at, but you're right. We don't have, it seems to me like I've got a lot of textual studies written by women, and I would like to know that, you know, your teen boy could do a textual study like this, a handy book, but not written by a woman. You could always do more of a workbook type, which is where, you know, it's kind of like your Bible class book, your Wednesday night Bible class book. This is on the book of Acts. So, and it's for a teenager. These are from a company called Discovering God's Way. I actually think it's been bought out by somebody else now, but my son did one of these for Bible class on moral issues. So like dating, marriage, drugs, sex, all that stuff, smoking. It was a book like this. And so you actually read a lesson and then, you know, answer the questions. So it's not as dry as you would think because there are photos in here, not just black and white pictures. There are actual photos. Like here's the city of Jerusalem, the location of the temple. There's charts. So I think it breaks it up pretty good. Here's the ruins of the synagogue at Capernaum. So anyway, that one would be a good one for him, The Life of Christ. And they have all kinds of those. So anyway, these books are really good because they're a really textual book. I used some of this one when I taught the teen girls recently. We were in 1st and 2nd Peter, and we didn't buy this book for all the girls. What we chose to do is just give the girls a journaling, a scripture journal, which is basically where the Bible's on the left and the right-hand side of the page is blank. And so we just kind of marked up the verses and talked about Greek words, and we made points. So we didn't want them to have a book like this. We didn't want them to have a book with questions and points. We just wanted to be in the text. But I used this for me as I was preparing for the class. So if that makes sense. So if you want to just do a book of the Bible with your kids, you could use this for yourself and then have them just dig in. Yeah. Any questions or comments? Just jump in. Okay, this is a really, maybe not a resource that you think of when you think of back to school, but if you ever want to break up the monotony of reading books, there are lots of videos that you can watch online, and especially as your kids age and get older and ask more questions about the one true church and why their friends are doing this and what the Bible has to say about so many different people trying to strive for heaven. This is a card example from World Video Bible School. And so it's just a little business card. And on the back is a QR code. And if you scan the QR code, you get to watch the video. Now, you could still go online. You can go online to worldvideobibleschool.org, wvbs.org, and watch videos. But these are kind of cool because our church has these, because you can actually hand these out to people. But then, you know, kids think it's cool to scan QR codes. So it just says, we invite you, with approximately 38,000 churches in the world, does it really matter which one you attend? We invite you to view this online video program that will answer the question, why are there so many churches? And so it gives a website, but then also has the QR code. And they have lots of different ones like pain and suffering, the plan of salvation, basically searching for truth. I'm drawing a blank, but if you go online, you can see lots of videos. So there are video options for when you have a sick day, when you have a mental health day. You can watch Digger Doug cartoons if you have some DVDs, and you can watch apologetics videos, and you can watch evangelism videos. So yeah, and then you tell them to make a poster about everything that they learned, and they can use markers, not just crayons, because markers are the bomb. And then you've got your day off, okay? You can tell them I said so. Okay, I think that's the last book I had to share. Does anybody have anything that was unclear yesterday, or something that they want to share that works for their back to school time, just to get you motivated and in the mood again? Or any questions that you have? I can't promise I'll have all the answers, but this is my, let's see, my 10th year, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, my 9th year. I thought it was my 10th year. Anyway, something like that. Okay.
What do you recommend for keeping track of your day-to-day schedule? You know, I've tried fancy planners and barely use them. I've tried cheap spiral notebooks that cost me either nothing or 25 cents, and, you know, just written down for each kid what their day should look like, and they've crossed it off, and that's been fantastic. But I kind of want something in the middle.
Okay. I wish my friend was on here this morning, because she's the planner queen, my friend Kim, because I told her that I'm not the planner. I'm like you. I have, I can't remember the names of them, but I have like 3 or 4 different planners downstairs on my shelf from the earlier years. Okay. And then the last few years, I haven't even used one, because they just don't work for me. Right. They just do not work. I guess it depends on what's required in your state, because you don't want to do anything you don't have to do. Right. And you really, if you know, I'm not required to, I'm required to teach subjects and keep attendance. And so it depends on what are you made to do?
We're in Texas, so we're pretty much free to do anything.
Okay, that's so, right. You are definitely
not really any requirements. So
yeah. So ask yourself, you know, are you feeling pressure to do it because you're supposed to do it, quote unquote, or does it really help you stay on track? I mean, if you're good with the notebook, I say keep doing the 79-cent notebook, and your kids like it and they know what to expect. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I would do if I were you. And I did the notebook for a while too. But my minimalist daughter would rip out the pages. Every time she was done, she would rip out the pages. And I'm like, I want you to keep the pages in there and just cross off what you do.
For sure.
But that was just like overwhelming to her to have so many pages with lines all over them. You know, you got to know your kid. So if I had to do over, I would give her a binder with loose leaf paper. And then she could take the papers out when she was overwhelmed. That was too much. Does that make sense? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Vicki. It was really grateful that I do not know pretty much any of the books or very few of them. So I'm going to definitely look into it. I do have a couple questions of the things you just said just now. The website you mentioned about it's called the reader program. Is it called apologetic.com?
Apologetics with an S, press.com.
Press.com. Okay. All right. I'll check it out.
.com and not .org. They also have an app.
Okay.
They just know that is a company, a website, a organization that is written and run by members of the church.
Okay.
So all things science related, all things, thank you.org, Rachel says.
Okay, thank you.
I should have known that. It is so comforting to know that we have smart men in the brotherhood who have articles like, you can just search things like, what about the dinosaur, you know, or that you can just, you know, abortion, anything science related, you can click on their search bar and they've written an article about it.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and they have videos too. So hard questions, you go there.
Okay.
I love it.
And the program over there, you said just register online, right?
Yes.
On their website. Okay.
Yes, it's called, there should be a tab on the left and it's called Advanced Bible Reader.
Advanced Bible Reader. Okay.
It should be there.
Okay. Thank you. And another question is, some brand new to homeschooling. They're just kind of overwhelming for the information and everything. Where would I find the requirements for high school and college? Like the paper you just showed.
What state are you in?
Illinois, but we're wanting to move to Texas.
Oh, well then you'll be much better off.
Well, we're hoping so. And we're praying for that as well. Just doesn't really quite feel much right here at all.
Right.
So
is your husband looking for work in Texas now?
He's just about to finish his resume and he's wanting to probably start looking. We are fortunate to have grandma from Texas to visit us right now for this week. Good. And we just finished getting the house ready, which is a ton of work.
Right.
That's why I'm so late for starting everything. And
right. You're not late. You're right on time. Because other people move and have babies and have flus and have COVID and have dying grandmothers, and they take time off and they're not late. They're doing homeschool. They're homeschooling.
Okay.
So I know it's really hard to think that way because, you know, you're just getting into it, but you're not behind. You're schooling how your family needs to right now. You weren't ready 2 weeks ago. You're getting a house ready. So you're doing fine. You're doing fine. But yes, it is Advanced Bible Reader on the left-hand side. I see it. So
okay.
And also they have a free Bible curriculum. It's called AP curriculum. So it's free for churches to use. It's a 4-year cycle through the whole Bible.
Okay.
But you can also use it for home, for Bible time at home. So, yep.
Sounds great. And where did you say the requirements for high school and college? We're going to find that?
Well, you're just going to go to hslda.org, which is Homeschool Legal Defense Association.
Okay.
And then you will click on your state to know the requirements for your state.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
On what is required for homeschooling. And then it really just depends on if you're having a college-bound student or not, you know, because if they're not going to college, you know, there's probably no reason to take foreign language because that's a requirement expected for college, 2 years of a foreign language. They're not going to college and they don't want to take it. Nobody says you have to have it to graduate high school.
We're unsure about that, but I've been teaching them Chinese. So
Great.
But anyway, I was planning out do we still have time, or do we need to go? Okay. I was going through the curriculum, the materials on hands, and then getting it ready, brush it through, and then I came across with the language, English. I was going to post it on the website to ask questions, but it was acting up last night, so I thought I'll just do it today since we're here, and then have you all here. Right now, I am have a line for the English, and then English is my second language, but my husband could be a big help. And right now I'm thinking of wanting to cover grammar, probably some writing for my older son. He's going to be in 5th grade. My daughter is going to be 2nd grade. And then some spelling and reading. And then that's all I can think of right now. And for reading, I'm not sure, is it reading together enough? I mean, they're going to do some reading themselves and they love it. And then I don't know what to do with the reading, just get books and read. They read, we read together. Is that enough?
Okay, I'm going to since I've been talking the whole time, I'm going to let the other moms chime in what they use or don't use or what they've learned.
Okay, so my middle daughter is 5th grade or starting 5th grade. And what we've done this entire time is, yes, I make a list of books that we want to read. Some of them we read aloud and some she reads independently. That read aloud family book that Vicki was talking about has some really good questions just to start a conversation that would be deeper than just a narration, which is them telling you what they read and you're checking that they understood what they read and that sort of thing. And so that read aloud family book was really helpful to me, that I actually I've got it right here. I typed out those questions and I have them in my teacher binder so that I can come back to them and just ask them for any book. I'll show you quick right here. They're called keys of conversation. And so she has like 5 keys of conversation and I typed them out and some of the reasons why. And then also 10 compelling questions, reading questions. And I typed all of that out from the book so that I can have that handy and not always flipping through the book. And so I can ask my child different questions about what they read. And it's just kind of a different way to check that they're understanding what they're reading. You can do fun things with your reading that especially if you know the book that they read, if you've read it before too.
Rachel, can I interrupt really fast? Do you have that saved where you could email that to her?
I think I do, but I don't know from a copyright standpoint if I would be allowed to do that.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
So I just did that for myself.
Okay, I'm definitely getting a book.
So I could have it handy. Yeah. So that's something that you can do, because I know what a lot of people do, especially when they're younger, like 1st and 2nd grade, they're checking for understanding because they're still learning how to read and that sort of thing. But when they get to be older, you can do that. You can do units on the parts of a story. I'm blanking right now, but I'm thinking like plot and the antagonist and the rising action and the climax and the falling act, all those things. You can do that with one of their books or something like that. So I'm just throwing a lot of ideas out there because
yes. Let me get the book very quick. I think I was going through that last night and it seems great, but I'm going to check.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rachel, because this is where it's nice to just hear from other mamas going through it. That's what I did too. We did not have
it and graphic organizer. This is what I found yesterday that I got. I thought it would be grateful. I thought it would be useful for like check out their reading as well every once in a while.
Yeah.
And thank you. And then is there like a time, like how much is enough? Should I have a standard? My kids both love to read, so I don't really have too much concern about that, but I'm just saying that.
You mean, should you require them to read, say, 30 minutes a day versus an hour a day or whatever?
Yeah.
I would just say whatever feels right now. If you have avid readers, they do have to get their math done. Okay. Because my son at that age would have read for 3 hours, you know. So if you know they're going to get lost in a book, then I would, try to get the other essentials out of the way first. And speaking from a teacher standpoint in 2nd grade, I would focus on writing, reading, and math. And yes, you do expose to the other subject of science and history, but your most important subjects are writing and reading and math, because, once they get past 2nd grade, it's going to be harder to catch up reading and writing level wise if you don't have the basics. So those 3 are the most important. If you don't do anything else that day, and other moms can chime in if they disagree, but if I did nothing else, if you have a really hectic day and you're not feeling well, I would just make sure those 3 are covered.
Okay.
And if the others aren't, if you get, quote unquote behind with art or science, science teachers, don't kill me, but elementary science is not imperative. Reading, writing, and math is imperative.
Okay. And for the writing, I don't have anything on hand right now. So I'm not sure. I mean, what do you guys do for like writing?
Well, what are you using for like your grammar, you said, your English type stuff? Because there may be writing involved in that, embedded in that.
Okay. The grammar I'm going to use for both of the kids is the series. Well, for my daughter, for 5th grade, I'm going to use this one. For my son, which is great. And for 2nd grade, this is for 3rd grade, but I thought she might be able to use this, but I have a 2nd grade one. Just 1 second. Which I was planning on using this one.
That's a very good curriculum.
Yeah. And then I thought this will be good too. And it has some, but it seems like it doesn't really have a lot of writing inside, but you will have a lot of, her telling me about it, that kind of thing.
Has anybody used what she's using to?
Yeah. That last one she pulled up, I bought the whole set, and it definitely repeats year after year. Obviously you need that repetition, but I think being a new homeschool mom, the first year I bought it, I was like, I'm going to buy this one, and by, book 5 or however far it goes to, it's going to be completely different, but really, really good. And my daughter, who is a struggling reader, loves it so much that she even wants to go through the lessons on her own sometimes. So definitely love the first language lesson series.
Okay. I'm probably planning on going through this one with her for 2nd grade and then jump to this one for 3rd grade. This one seems to have a lot of writing for her. She writes really carefully. So I think too much writing is going to stress her out.
Yeah.
Thinking about our first year, just go ahead, go with this one first.
Yeah, I think
okay. And for what you're saying, writing, what does it exactly cover? Like grammar?
Well, to me, it's going to integrate all of those things. So just giving her writing practice each day, just get a composition notebook and have her write something each day. It can be about what you've done. It can be about a trip. It can be about something she's learning. It can be about a memory. It can be about anything, but you're integrating her spelling, her comprehension, her ordering of things. If she writes something and you see that she's making grammar mistakes that she's already learned about 2 weeks ago, you're reminding her of those things. So you're kind of pointing out and teaching as she's writing.
Okay.
At 2nd grade, I would expect you to work on just developing a strong paragraph. What is a paragraph? It has a main idea. It has some supporting sentences. It has correct punctuation. So make it fun so she can write about whatever she wants, but also reminding her that, this is how you develop a strong paragraph.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. And for like spelling, I got this from, I think Karen Curriculum Corner last time. And I'm wanting to do spelling because both kids, they were in a magnet school earlier and they do some spelling for sure. And I think it's great for them. I was wanting to use this one, but I'm not sure it's good for my son and my daughter. I checked on a website last night, said there's like a placement test to check where would be good to start with, but I couldn't find it on that website. I'm not sure, did I do it right or not? So
I do not know about that one.
Okay. Do you do spelling? Or if you do, what would be the good resource to go with? And
I used Spelling Powers, the only one I used. And I think it's been so long. So girls, what do you use?
I'm completely drawing a blank right now.
I know. Well, and some people don't even use a formal curriculum, so it's hard to know. If you don't think that's right for your kids, go with your gut and look for something else. But
yeah,
it may be something you address. I think in the grammar book, the Easy Grammar, if I'm not mistaken, I thought it had little spelling practice exercises.
I think so.
Where you identify, the misspelled word, and you talk about word patterns, but I'm really not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there's different websites you can use. I know that for sure, because there's like some freebie apps and things that you can use, or you can pay for the subscription. And we've kind of played around with those. I like a Charlotte Mason approach for one of my kids in particular. Mm-hmm. And on the Simply Charlotte Mason website, she has a lot of books and things where she'll give a paragraph, whether it's a scripture, whether it's a poem, whether it's a quote, and I'll have my kids memorize that for the week. And then they have to know how to spell all the words in that verse or all the words in the poem, and I'll quiz them at the end of the week.
Okay.
So it just really, for us, one thing I've learned about homeschooling is each and every kid is different. And we have 5 kids, and I've tried to figure out, and we've only been doing this for 7 years, so I feel like such a newbie through all this. This is our 7th year, but just trying to tailor each kid's needs to their curriculum. And I feel like I'm starting fresh sometimes every year because the kids change and mom changes, and trying to find what works, basically.
I do like what she said about making it real, putting it into context of the poem or the verse or whatever they're already learning, and talking about spelling in that context versus just isolating spelling all the time. Maybe there's a balanced approach you can find if you think that's not really good for your child. So one person taught me long ago that she used the church hymn book to teach sight words. So words that she knew her kid could not sound out, they started identifying those words in the songs of the songbook. And she organized them by, she had a list on her computer of, the songs that had the most. Anyway, every child likes to feel involved. And so you get the songbook out and you start working on some of those words at home, and then they feel like, oh, I can read this song during the worship hour. So poems, hymns, verses, even the paragraphs that she's working on for grammar, talking about spelling rules in those contexts versus just isolated lists.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But yes, that's something you could post on the page, on the Facebook page. And if you have specific questions about spelling, there'll be, there's only a couple of us here. There'll be a whole lot more interaction on that on the page. And that's something you can wait on. If you don't do spelling the first day, it's okay. You can kind of wait till you feel like you've got what you need. So.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, girls, I'm going to pray to close this out. And then in September, I hope to do another 7 minutes of wisdom, which means I'll have several people, guest speakers on here, and they will just talk about different things. So it'll be a variety show. Okay. And hopefully that'll be fun. All right. Anything specific y'all want me to pray for? All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we've had again to come together as sisters. And I ask that you bless each and every homeschool represented. whether they're here now or they were here earlier or they'll be listening later. I ask that you bless their homeschool this year. Help them to know their why, help them to keep their family in focus, help them to protect their family's time, help them to say no, and help us all to strive to get our kids to heaven. Please, Lord, forgive us when we fall short, but help us know that your grace extends new every morning. Your mercies are new, and just give us the peace that only comes from you. Help us to focus on what we need to be a peaceful, content mom, and give us a spirit of courage that we can face the battles before us. Thank you for loving us and giving us so many resources, Lord. We're so blessed in this country to have the freedom to homeschool and to have an overabundance of materials to choose from. Just help us remember sometimes we just need to go back to the basics and know that 20, 30 years ago, the pioneers who homeschooled before us did not have all of these things. They did not have so many things we have now. And just help us know if we strip all those away, we can still homeschool successfully using your word and using some basic subjects that you have equipped us, and you've given us everything we need for life and godliness. Thank you, Lord, for all of our blessings, and we ask that you be with those men and women who have gone overseas, and we ask that you bring peace, Lord, and we ask that you protect our families and protect our troops, and we give you thanks for our congregations who support those families in many ways, and we just ask that you help us all work together to shine our lights in our communities. Thank you for loving us and giving us your son, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, girls, have a great day. I love you guys.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you.
Bye.